an amazing, positive morning for everybody. And hopefully, we'll test it in a second. Hopefully, this is one of those amazing and positive mornings also experienced on Twitter, now known as X. And welcome to the Freedom Coffee live stream, where we celebrate the freedoms that we have. And we work on ideas to expand our freedoms in the future and bring people together. And how do we do that? Well, first thing we got to do is we got to get ourselves a cup of coffee. In this case, I don't have my freedom mug with me. I had to run out and things have been a little bit busy. But grab your cup of coffee and grab some positivity and the positive framing and think about all the good things in your life, much like on the, the 5-minute journal that we've talked about repeatedly here. And hopefully that is a good way to start with a positive reset to your day and everything becomes positive from there. So I'm going to do my best to make sure this is the best and most positive Saturday of your life. So let me just test and see if it's working on Twitter, now known as X. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, so this is the first time I'm going to be simulcasting to Twitter and X because now the RMTP setup has been created. We'll give it a shot. We'll see how it works. And hopefully I'll help all of you begin your Saturday in a positive way. Okay, this week I started a Substack. I released a Substack. And please, if you could, check it out. It's called Reaching the Other Side. And the theme is just generally, I talked about going on trigonometry and meeting Constantine and Francis and finding a lot of the common ground and discussing some of the stuff. Beth says your Substack article was another good one. Well, thank you very much, Beth. I appreciate it. That's very sweet of you. So check out Substack, bjdictor.substack.com. And if you're here and listening, please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Good morning, Megan. Good morning, Bridget. Tao, what's up? Everybody's starting to come in here. As usual, it's good to see you. And I still haven't figured out how to get the Rumble chat working in here, but I will work on that sometime soon. Anyways, it is what it is, so thank you for being here. All right. I want to talk a little bit about a tweet that I put up this morning, and this has unfortunately become a regular topic. The post I put is about growing up Albonian, which I'll explain what that means in a second when we get into it. But I'm thinking, should I play this? Maybe I'll play a little bit of this excerpt. It's from a video that I uploaded by Scott Adams. It's a cut of one of his regular streams, and he talks about this particular issue. And basically, let me read the tweet that I put that acknowledges this, okay? And remember, I'm not into identity politics. I hate the fact that I'm constantly having to talk about this. It's really getting on my nerves, I got to be honest. But this is the tweet, and you'll understand it in a second. There was so much pressure growing up Albonian. Failure to get perfect grades meant you were a failure or a loser. And many students had nervous breakdowns as a result. It was about survival, education to prevent another Holocaust. Quote, how about sending your kids to fucking school? Scott Adams says. Now I'm going to play a little excerpt. It's a few minutes long, but it might help get some context, and I want to explain this a little bit. Then we'll get into the other stuff. Good morning, Jesse. It's good to see you here, dear. All right.
On the Jews. I assume that's satire. All right. I'm going to give you the benefit of a doubt. All right. The benefit of a doubt.
Can you hear this?
Satire.
Give me a thumbs up if you can.
I don't want to see that shit in the comments otherwise. I don't want to say this every day either. Right? Can you maybe not do anti-Semitic things in the comments? Like maybe that's just not cool. How about a lot less of that, huh? So, free speech, fine, but it doesn't belong everywhere. It's not satire. Let me take a break here. Let me take a break. So you got a group of people in the world who everybody knows are unusually successful. Let's call them Albonians. And these Albonians are really good at going to school and getting advanced degrees. And with their advanced degrees, they have lots of opportunities, especially at the higher levels of business and society. So they take their better degrees and they start doing really well. So well that they look at what would be the best industry to be in if you could be in any industry. So these Albonians that I'm talking about are so well trained, they've got such good educations that they could be in tech, they could be in government, they could be in media. Really, they could just call their shots. And if you were in media, you'd do well. You might even be the boss after a number of years of having experience. So once the Albonians just sort of worked through the system, just being Albonians, eventually the Albonians look to be dominating a lot of important industries. Mm-hmm. Now, why is it that they dominate the important industries? And somebody would say Hollywood too, because that influences our minds. Why are all these Albonians in the important industries? And why do they have all this power? Because they went to school. Would you like your family to be captains of industry and maybe head up a media company someday? How about sending them to fucking school? How about if you send your kids to fucking school, they can be the CEOs of a media company too? How about fucking opening your head and looking at if there's a group of people who are killing it on education and they become your fucking boss, maybe you should look at yourself. Maybe you should check your work, right? If you got a boss that's an Albonian because they all went to fucking school and it was their biggest fucking priority and it wasn't your priority, they should be your boss. You should work for Albonians. The Albonians are going to run your country, they're going to run your media, they're going to run your Hollywood. They're going to run your tech, they're going to run every fucking thing that matters. Why? Because they went to school. It's making me crazy, right?
Yes.
How is that not obvious? How is that not fucking obvious? Every one of you anti-Semitic assholes, you don't see that going to school is the main variable? Can you not see that? Seriously? You can't see that there's a correlation between school and success.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Am I the first person to tell you that? Like you've never fucking heard that before? You never thought of it? Didn't have that thought yourself? How about it doesn't require any collusion on behalf of Israel for the people who took schooling as their top priority and then execute?
So, to lead in with that, don't worry, we'll get to the positive stuff, I promise. He brings up a very, very important point, and his thesis, which he's discussed this a number of times, because we all see the nonsense that's going online, and much of it is scripted, much of it is fake, or it's run by feds, which I'll talk about in a second. But growing up in that situation, I haven't spoken to Scott specifically about this, but I'm sure he's heard from his friends. Do you have any idea how much pressure it was? Like how much pressure the Albonians. I mean, look, I mentioned the POEC. I'm adopted. I was adopted into a Jewish family, but my biological siblings are not, and we've all gotten to know each other. Guess who had the most pressure to perform in school? Like in my school, let me explain this. I remember telling this to people. Nobody ever believes me. In my schools growing up, both when I went to private school growing up, and then I went to public middle school, and not middle school, but junior high school and high school. And so many of us, because we all kind of lived in the same neighborhood, we went from the private school, we went to public school and whatever. In my school, which is there's a lot of Asian people as well. There's a lot of us. You were a loser if you didn't get straight A's. Do you understand that? Can you conceptualize that? Because I thought it was normal, but I learned later on that it wasn't. Like if you didn't get on the honor roll, you were just not cool. You were popular based on your success and how seriously you took school. Are the people who are running their mouths about, Jews online, did they take school so seriously? Did these feds that are LARPing as freedom fighters who are promulgating all of this BS, did they take school as their number one priority? And when I say pressure, I mean, you know how many times I saw kids and other students that I was with break down in tears when they didn't get 85% on, their final calculus exam, and they thought they were a failure and they're going to amount to nothing in life? Like, that's the environment we were in. And then, my last year or second last years of high school, I can't remember. I think might have been the last year of high school. I went to a public Catholic school, so I left kind of my school to do night school with some friends of mine on the opposite end of the city. We'd go for coffee all the time anyways. We just thought, hey, it'll be great. We'll meet some new friends and some new people and stuff. So we went to a Catholic school north of Toronto, like on the northern suburbs. And it was so funny. Went to do OAC English, which was the last year it was the university entrance year for English. And it was the first time I saw the reality of how other schools saw it. Remember, there was a TV show in the 70s, late 70s, 80s called Welcome Back, Kotter. And the class clown was always the most popular person. Like, there was a number of TV shows like that and movies. I thought that was fiction. Like, that's completely fake. What are you talking about? In all the schools I've been to, the class clown was a loser nobody would talk to, who would make some jokes and everybody would say, shut up, get out of here. So then I went to this night school, this Catholic school for OAC English, and I saw the inverse of what I grew up with. All of a sudden, the class clown was the popular school. And I'm like, what am I in the Twilight Zone? That's like what it's like on TV. That's not how the world is. Well, turns out from other friends of mine, he has to go salsa dancing with and whatever, their schools were the same way. I'm like, what are you talking about? The popular, they're like, what are you talking? And they thought I was crazy. Like, those are the nerds. Well, welcome to the life of growing up Albonian. If you go to school, you have to take it seriously, or you're a failure and a loser. That's just the way it is. And why? It's a survival tactic. What's the survival tactic? Everything we're seeing going on today in the world, right? They blame everything on the Albanians. Everything is them. There's a cabal of 5 people or 10 Albanians in the world who control all the world, yet somehow allow the fact that everybody is able to promulgate this false hatred against them. Like, it's just common sense. It makes no sense. It's just really frustrating. So anyways, I went to this Catholic school, this OAC school, this school for OAC. And I don't know, the first couple of weeks it was culture shock. The class clown was popular. I remember telling some friends of mine, I'm like, you're not going to believe this. When you go to their school, like, the clown is popular. Like, no. I'm like, yeah, that's how it is. And I remember we were midway through the semester, and we were reading, I think it was Stephen Hawking's Finite Without a Boundary. Yes, it was. It was a chapter, Finite Without a Boundary, in one of Stephen Hawking's books. And by that time, I had gone from being like a mediocre student with all the Albanian students who their entire lives took education seriously to this other school where I was like a 95% average student. It was a cakewalk for me. It was crazy. And some of the other students realized pretty quickly after a couple of weeks that I understood the material and stuff. And we would have these sessions where you'd have to write out essays and stuff like that. So this one was on Finite Without a Boundary. And the two popular kids of the school, I can't remember the girl's name, but there was some girl and her, I don't know, boyfriend or friend or whatever. The girl started talking to me. This was like the most popular girl in the school. So she came over and started talking to me and asking me, where did I go to school, blah, blah, blah. And I told her and all that sort of stuff. And she said to me, oh, can I help her with her essay? And I'm like, me? I'm an average student, but okay, sure. Here I'm not an average student. Here I'm like valedictorian, but okay, fine. Sure, I'll help you out. And then the following week, we are continuing through this same assignment. We had to do a little bit every week. And her friend or boyfriend or whatever it was comes up to me. And I remember his name was Fabio Ferrari. And, Fabio was typical. I mean, if you grew up in the 90s, you'd know, tearaway pants and, just very, very much culturally of that area. So he comes over to my desk and he says, yo, can you help me out a little bit? And I'm like, sure, Fabio, what do you need? And he said, I don't know where to start. I'm like, okay, what'd you write so far? So he hands me a piece of paper. He didn't know how to write cursive, which right away was a concern to me, but okay, write cursive, fine. You're into printing. So I start reading this thing, and I couldn't believe it. The first word of his essay was yo. So this is an essay he's writing about Stephen Hawking's finite without a boundary analysis, and he starts with the word yo. So I helped him out. I didn't make fun of him, whatever. I was, okay, Fabio, rule number one, yo is not a word, so is not a word. Gave him some of the basics and helped walk him through it, and that was it. But that's why you see, Albanians in business all the time, because we're given so much pressure amongst our. It wasn't even pressure from our friends. It was pressure from our friends, from our parents. Our parents were pretty cool. It was our friends that were giving us so much pressure. That's just how culturally it was. It was absolutely crazy, and. So it's really frustrating, and it's refreshing to hear comments like this excerpt from Scott Adams to try to explain to some of the people. Like, I see a lot of these people who've latched on to after the Freedom Convoy, who are promulgating all of this nonsense against the Albanians. Oh, they control the world. Oh, they this. And like, you dumb fucks. You didn't go to school at all. You have no basic understanding of how to do research, how to do analysis, how to understand complex systems. Yet we can always go to, it's the Albanians that cause all the problem because it's lazy philosophy. It's just so lazy. And it's so frustrating because there are so many of us that are trying to communicate to all of you what's actually going on. There are some clear and present dangers in Canada and in the West, in our government and tangentially to the government. We're trying to help lead you to the water to show you what the problem is so you can understand. And all we get is this lazy, it's just the Albanians. That's it. Like, it's so frustrating. Sorry, I don't mean to vent, but it's, anyways, so we're seeing a lot of it in the wake of what's going on. And so much of it is coming from propaganda, and I get that. And I think we all know that too. But it's also a really good way to spot somebody who is a Fed. So this is the other element. Scott didn't get into this so much. So the first thing is, and maybe people's lack of understanding of this is what lends itself to it, but why do governments care so much about the Albanians? Right? You hear that a lot. Like, why are governments wanting to stamp out anti-Albanianism and all that sort of stuff? And you have organizations like, in the U.S., you have the ADL. Here you have similar organizations that are always trying to draw attention to anti-Albanianism, right? Do you know why? It's not because the Albanians control the world. It's because the Albanians are a bellwether indicator for governments and for law enforcement and intelligence services. It's a bellwether for them to understand that there is that the society in general is unhealthy, that we have a lot of problems. It usually happens when the economy is starting to falter, when inflation is out of control, when there's massive societal problems. That's when you see the increase of anti-Albanianism. And that's why governments react to it. It's not because there's special treatment. It's because it's a small group of people that have a reputation for just engaging in commerce and building businesses. That's it. That's the flaw for this group of people. So the governments and political parties and intelligence services see, okay, the anti-Albanianism is getting a little out of control. We have to figure out what we're doing wrong. The lobby class has to figure out what's doing wrong, whatever, that sort of thing, right? Intermingled with all their corruption too, right? So the corruption's got to continue, but they got to figure out how to bring some calm to the society, right? And this is also why you see what I like to say, it's a good way to determine, or an indicator and warning, that somebody is a Fed. Not meaning they work for the federal government, but they are used by the federal government. Usually dumb people, usually people who don't have a lot going on in their lives. They have a lot of debt. They have alcoholism or drug habits. You know, like when they removed myself and Chad and Bridget and Chris and all of us from the Freedom Corp board, which is exploiting money from all of you, who did they replace them with? Exactly those sorts of people. Drug addicts, people with alcoholism, people who have, not much going on in their lives, right? Because they can be easily controlled. The governments do, the government agencies, political parties, which is where much of this comes from, they do the same thing. So they'll find these useless maniacs and they'll get them to stir up anti-Albanianism, right? You see that with this idiot Fed McKenzie, right? He runs his mouth always about the Albanians, running the world, right? I mean, the guy's brain is fried as well. That's another thing. But that's why he's very easy to be co-opted as a Fed. Do you know why they do that? There's a very simple strategy why they do that. It's called reconnaissance by fire. So what they do is they get a fool like him to start promulgating all his anti-Albanian bullshit, and then they look around to see who else comes on board, who else supports them. And if they see a large group, like in this case, these Diagolon twinks, when they saw that group grew to, I don't know how many was in his Telegram group at one point, it was something like 10,000 people or something. When they see there's 10,000 morons that are getting attracted to this Fed operation of the anti-Albanian smear, then they know there's a problem. And then they start to track the people who they are. Could this be an extreme? No, there's no question this also happens on the other side of the political spectrum. That's a problem too. But these people are not right-wing anyways. They're not conservative. Fed McKenzie's not a conservative. He's a lefty. You couldn't be more lefty than him. He's BLM. Why? Because he's for centralized social powers, centralized control based on race, right? He always talks about, we want preferential treatment for white people. He has all the philosophical framing of an ultra-leftist. Those people are not right-wing. And this is why philosophy is so important, as I've come to learn. So if you understand the philosophy of people, you understand where they fit in all of this, then you can see who is being utilized by political parties, NGOs, whatever you want to call it, to stow up some of this extremism so they can see where it is. That's all he's being used for. And yeah, he gets money for it, right? That's how this works. It's pretty frustrating. So, just wanted to touch on that issue that, growing up Albanian was not easy. It was a lot of pressure. And the pressure was to succeed and succeed in school, then succeed in university. Like I remember telling the guys at at the night school as well. I mean, most of them are Italian, but they're so awesome because we all loved cars. Finally, I was in a school with a bunch of people who loved cars. It was amazing. But it wasn't just that. It was like university was not an option. And not only university, you had to go to law school, medical school. You had to even, industry was not even a thing. It was accounting, doctor, lawyer, professional of some way, shape, or form. Anything less was not tolerated. Why? Again, it was about survival. It was about we couldn't have another what happened during the mid-century Germans happen again. And the way to do that is to get educated, to achieve wealth, to achieve success, to achieve status. And with that, that becomes a hedge the next time something like that happens, right? That's why you're seeing this push and pull between the Islamist political entryism into the West and many of those people pushing back saying, this has got to go, these people have to leave. We tried to warn you about this. This is what we went through in Europe in the 1930s and 40s. All right, so no great conspiracy. We just go to school, and I was a little bit of a rabble-rouser. Me and some of my friends, we were a little bit of outcasts, but we all got along, right? I hope that clarifies some things. What is the WF part in their brain got the WF partition the WF partition in their brain got overwritten that the Albanians control narrative. I can't see, there's something blocking it, the little icon here, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, and that's the thing, people, it becomes the default programming, which is really frustrating, that you start to resonate, you start to reach people like I had in the past, because I'm not afraid to talk to the people who are a little bit confused, unlike many other people. I'll actually engage with them and try to make them realize that, most of us are kind of all the same. Most of us just want to be left alone. I want to be left alone. Go work on my car, do my hobbies, whatever, get my truck and whatever. I want a simple life. But unfortunately, that's not in the cards now, given what's going on in the world. I know so many people. I gotta get rid of this stupid. Why Streamlabs? Why are you designed this way? But I know so many educated people who worship JT. Yeah, well, so the Liberal Party, which it always will have a 24%, 25%. Voting base, and there's a bunch of reasons why that, right? People have business ties. Like, there's a bunch of people in the Liberal Party, majority from what I understand now, hate Trudeau and want him to leave, but they're in the party because of business ties, corporate relations, family ties. Like, we all have all these different pressure points in our lives that maybe say, yeah, or sometimes we'll just say, I don't like the Conservatives. I've had bad experiences with the Conservatives before, or I've had bad experiences with the NDP before. So there's always that percentage of every party that's going to remain the base, which I think is also part of the problem. But anyways, there's a lot of that too. And, there's a bunch of, like, what's that MP's name? Yara Sachs, that moron that said, HH means honking, HH mean, what does it mean, Hail Hitler, when she said during the trucker convoy. I think I just got demonetized, but whatever. I'm quoting her. That's what she attributed HA to. Like, what a moron. Like, we all knew she was an airhead when she got elected, but as somebody said to me, who else wants to run? Nobody else wants to, right? The people who want to don't have the skill sets. The people who have the skill sets don't want to because they don't want to be a punching bag. So that's how we end up with a bunch of losers in our government now, right? Just a moron, Yara. Yara's Israeli. Anyways, not Israeli, but I think she's Israeli descent or something like that. But whatever. Okay, the Gaza protests. Did you know the Gaza protests are mostly fake? Did you know that? I bet you didn't. So it's really interesting because there's an entire network that works to promulgate this sort of propaganda and bring it all together, because what we're dealing with is optics. They're just playing the optics game. They're playing the the propaganda game, because this is all about one thing. It's all about the subversion of the West. It's in the Muslim Brotherhood document that was discovered in 1992, that they're going to utilize dawah and subversion to take over the West, which is exactly what we're seeing. That's why they have the MSA on all the campuses there. The MSA is dawah. It's about converting them and bringing them into their brand of extremism. What was there, 638 chapters of the MSA in the US and Canada? What are they doing? That's exactly what we're doing. I explained this before in a previous stream. In a stream or a Twitter space, that's how you end up with, the vegan group on campus all of a sudden is protesting Free Palpatine, because they've been subjected to political entryism by MSA activists. That's how this all works, right? MSA, Muslim Student Association, is the MSA. That is the first above-ground Muslim Brotherhood organization in the Western world, and it was established in the 1960s. And I saw some of that on campus at Ryerson. I was experiencing it myself, But you try to explain this stuff to Westerners, it's very complex, right? And especially if you don't really care, it doesn't really affect you, then whatever, it's just another group of people, because that's our system, right? The free market system is just a bunch of individual interests or group interests that are competing over control. I mean, that's okay. That's the way the Western system works. But it doesn't work if we don't have any standards. We don't have any basic standards of, the principles that made the Western world what it is. We need to have people who embody those principles. We can't have 7th century savagery coming in and making them an equal partner. Like, I'm sorry, that wasn't what the Enlightenment was about. If you're not an enlightened person, then maybe you shouldn't be here, right? Which is what we're seeing going on right now. All right. So the way it works is this. The Gaza protests are all fake, just like the Women's March and all that other stuff. Same people, same groups, same individuals. I mean, this is more of the Red-Green Alliance coming together to subvert the West, right? And they don't necessarily work together, although in some cases they do. They usually work, parallel to one another and are at odds with one another, but they will utilize each other's success to further their sort of mandate. So I saw this during, we had these Al-Quds Day protests in Toronto. It's all fake. It's all fake. It's so funny. It's just optics. What you're seeing is you're seeing a group of NGOs that are laundering money into Canada, which, by the way, Canada is the #1 place in the world to launder money since Trudeau got elected. Well, I wonder why there's so much instability here now, right? This is why. And the term money laundering, I don't even like. I reject that. I don't think we should money laundering or controlling your own money, which is why I'm a Bitcoiner. Controlling your own money shouldn't be illegal. And perhaps if the governments just enforced their laws right now around extremist groups, cartels, all that sort of stuff, then the rest of us could be free to transact. But they're not doing that. They're trying to take the easy way, which is to cut everybody off from money and put everybody under the thumb of government, which is a whole other topic. So what happens, the money gets laundered through a series of NGOs, and there's kind of a hierarchy of all the different NGOs. And then it ends up in like a regional community center, if you will, right? By the way, I produced the Quiggin Report podcast for 3.5 years, so that's why I know quite a bit about this. Tom is an ex-military intelligence analyst whose specialty as a court expert was in Islamic terrorism networks. So I know a lot more about this than the average person. Just, I had to understand it in editing the material and stuff. And, everybody who was involved gave me a little bit of a background and laid this all out to me. And then once you learn it, once you understand it, then you just can't unsee it anymore. You can do a sweep of a website or a Twitter account or whatever, and like, oh, okay, I can see who that person's connected to and where they would go on the list. So anyways, the money then comes into a regional organization that would then distribute it to their affiliated, let's call them community centers, right? And then what those community centers will do after prayers is they will have different events, let's say on the weekends, whatever given day it is, and they'll tell people, okay, if you want to come to this protest that we're having on Saturday or Sunday, you know, kind of like, you know, blame the Jews, whatever. Jews are the whatever they're going to do. They say if you come down, then we'll pay you. If you have a family of 4, we'll pay you. I think the highest I ever heard was $150, at least at that time, it's a few years ago, for a family of 4. And so bring your kids, come down. They bus them in. That's why they're all wearing the safety vests so they can all identify each other, because they're all part of a group that have been bussed in from a number of community centers, usually from Brampton or Mississauga in the case of Toronto. And they'll show up and they'll do the free Palpatine crap. And when you go to talk to them, because I've spoken to some of those people who are there, there's always the core lunatics. I don't want to say terrorists. They're not even, I mean, they're complete pussy. They're even worse. But you have the core lunatics in the middle, and we kind of know who they all are. It's the same people over and over again. And then you have this huge, massive crowd of people holding free Palpatine. In the case of Canada, most of them are Pakistani. They don't care about Palpatine. They just don't care. But whatever, they'll go out with a family, they'll go downtown they'll get $150. They'll look around, and I remember talking to a few of them, and I was there with some friends who are Iranian, who also escaped to Canada because of persecution from certain groups. And they were trying to talk to them in, this wasn't the Al-Quds, one of them was the Al-Quds Day rally. Al-Quds is Iranian, right? It's so one of them went up to even the imam. There was an imam there in the back and whatever, and he tried to talk to him in Farsi. And the guy didn't understand a word he was saying because he's Pakistani. He doesn't know what Farsi is. So he said, how are these people protesting on behalf of Iran if they don't even speak the language? They don't know what they're saying because they're getting paid. It's just optics. It's all fake. They didn't care to be there. They're there. The community's there. Their friends are there or whatever. They're getting a little bit of money. And most of them were just waiting for the bus to come so they could get out of there and go home. That's it. Because many of them were new immigrants to Canada. They have time for this. You know, they got to work. They got to make some money. And this was an easy way to both make money and spend time with their kids. So when you see these mass protests in cities around the world, yeah, you'll see the core lunatics in the middle. But most of the people holding the Palpatine flags, they don't give a shit. They don't care. They came to Canada to get away from that nonsense. But you make a couple of bucks, So it's all staged. And I think it's important that people start to look at it carefully and start to realize that, yeah, listen, there's always some maniacs there. But most of the people, they don't want to be there. All right, so, and they're also protesting in favor of one of 2 fake places that never existed. One is Narnia, the other is Palpatine. So we'll talk more about that in the future. So let's get into positivity. Cheryl, wow. You guys are awesome. Okay, Tao says, keep in mind that education you have to blindly accept what they teach you. Educated people will still take legacy media at face value. Yes, there's something there, Tao. I don't know that it's the education that's the problem. The problem is the workload. You know, so I was in a Twitter space the other day and we were talking about, and one of the people spoke up. They were talking about how, you know, the 1% and the rich people. And finally somebody said, like, I've had enough of this. I don't want to hear this anymore. The 1%, the rich people, it's the us versus them. People don't understand. People often don't consider what's happening on the other. We always think the grass is greener on the other side. And that people who may have achieved wealth, they also don't see their families, and they work 90 hours a week. Jordan Peterson talks about that. Like, who the hell wants to make that sort of sacrifice to not see their children growing up? But, you know, you get into this trap, and you kind of have no choice. That's what my friends, who I grew up with them, it was rare that I got to see my parents all the time. But most of my friends didn't. Most of my parents never saw their parents, or at least never saw them together, because usually their father was working 80, 90 hours a week. And yeah, they were successful, but there's trade-offs for everything, and there's trade-offs for everyone, right? So I know I went on that tangent now, but the positive aspects of all of this is this. We see the chaos and the propaganda war that's going on right now. We're not seeing World War III. We're not going to see World War III. No country in the Middle East wants World War III. There's a few terrorist groups. Well, maybe 2 countries do. But aside from a couple of countries and a bunch of fringe proxy organizations, people call them terrorist groups, but they're just proxies for the Muslim Brotherhood and proxies for the Iranians. So both Shia and Sunni together, by the way. So don't let anybody say that they don't work together. But aside from those fringe lunatics who are completely brainwashed, most people in the world, in the Muslim world and the Middle East, they're tired of this. They don't want any of this garbage anymore. You know what they want? They want quality of life, standard of living. They want to build economies. Perfect example, look at the United Arab Emirates. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, these are upcoming economies. They see what Israel was able to build in terms of an economy, building up Tel Aviv into a major metropolitan city that they call it startup city or something in the Middle East. They want a piece of that. They want a better life for themselves. And it's these idiots that get in the way. And that's why no country wants them, right? So, anyways, a bunch of people are sending me messages at the same time. You guys are awesome. Grace says, there's another good point, education for success, but also being willing to do what it takes, and see so many people who want money but also don't want to work. Yes, Patrick Bet-David talks about this. I wanted to post this speech. The people you want to stay away from in life, they're the ones who are lazy and ambitious. Those are the ones that are going to get you. And boy, that is so true. And we saw that from some of the political activists in the Freedom Convoy, and I picked them out right away, tried to keep them as far away as possible. But anyways, and to what Tal was saying, his original point here with educated people in the mainstream media, it's just because they're working so much, they don't have the time. They don't have the time to sit here and listen to BJ do a stream. They got to get to work. They have a meeting. That's the problem, right? That's why I also record this in a podcast form for people who listen at work or listen in the car or while they're traveling, because most people like that don't have the ability. And then the other thing, I was going to talk to Guillaume about this at some point because he took issue with it and I didn't get to explain it, which is that the more educated people are, the easier they are to brainwash. Did you know that? It wasn't Cialdini you talked about. I think it was Erickson, if I'm not sure. I read in a book many, many years ago that if people are highly educated, you can brainwash them if you just convince them that your data is accurate. That's all you have to do. You just have to convince them that you have the better data, and they'll believe it. Whereas people, we see in the trucking industry, some of my fellow truckers, they may not be educated, but you know what they have? They have epic bullshit detection, right? So they do, and then we saw a lot of this in COVID. That's why the people who opposed the mandates were the wealthiest, most educated people in the world and the most blue-collar working-class people in the world. One group of people saw that the data is BS, or at least that was their interpretation, and the other group of people, I don't understand, I'm not sure your data, but I can detect BS, and I know you're lying to me. And both of those people came to the same conclusion and understood that this was just political theater, right? Largely. Not that people didn't die, obviously people did, but anyways. So the positivity and the positive perspective for all of this, especially with these protests around the world and, gas the Albanians and that sort of nonsense, this is all scripted by people who are here illegally. Most of them. Most of them are here illegally. Some of them are trying to get permanent resident, whatever. Most of these people should just be thrown out of a Western society because they don't embody the values of what a Western society is, the values of freedom, the values of, like, you know how many people I know, friends I have who are social conservatives, they're like, listen, I'm not down personally with, they would say I'm not down with them speaking. I'm not down with same-sex marriage, but I don't care. I got to get on with my life, right? People are going to do that. That's for them. Great. Whereas they know I'm in support of it. And I'm like, okay, fine. We disagree, but we can agree to get along and we agree on the basic principles of freedom, right? That's it. But the authoritarians come in many forms. And the authoritarians come in the form of Prime Minister Blackface. That's your secular version of authoritarianism. And then there's another version of authoritarianism that you're all seeing on the streets right now, which are the free Palpatine Islamists. Those are your theocratic authoritarians. That's why anybody who supported the Freedom Convoy, the principles of freedom and autonomy, should be strident in their opposition to another authoritarian movement trying to take over Western society, because that's exactly what is happening right now. Ryan C7, money doesn't make you happy. Paid off my house, bought my mom a car, and the only thing that is worth a damn is spending time with loved ones. Brother, I hear you 100%. I agree. And you know what's funny is that, what did I just do? The funny part is that, I've met some very, very wealthy people in my life. Most of them are miserable. They're either miserable or very stressed or overworked or all over the place. They're just, the happiest people I've ever met are usually the poorest people in Latin America, actually. People who understand, and why? Because they take that family support structure very seriously in their culture. Far more seriously than we take it here. So, we can conclude, based at least how I've seen things, if you trust my view of the world and the things that I've experienced, that because so much of what we're seeing online is scripted and it's propaganda, that you shouldn't be worried about it. The culture war will continue, and I engage you all to get involved in the culture war, the PR war, because it's important to speak up. But you're up against a foe that lies, and it's fake and fabricated, just like Trudeau and Friedland and all that. And no coincidence that they're all on the same side, right? Because they're all authoritarians in the same way. So the fact that the authoritarians in the world need to lie so heavily on lies by omission and propaganda to lie to all of you, and they try their best to brainwash all of you, the other benefit is the brainwash eventually wears off. That's why people, especially on university campuses, they need to hear Free Palpatine every 5 seconds. Because once they stop hearing Free Palpatine, and they get away from it for a few minutes or a few days or however long it takes, then they realize, wait, something's wrong. The brainwashing wears off, and then they slip back to not caring, right? So I think there's a lot of hope, and that's also, I always recommend the 5-Minute Journal and Scott's book. I wish I had it in my hand right now. Reframe Your Brain. I'm maybe 75% of the way through. It's a great book. And also this book, Honking for Freedom. All of these things are positive impacts on your life that I think help hedge against some of the chaos and the noise. And remember, Christmas is coming up. Maybe Reframe Your Brain and Honking for Freedom would be a good gift set for some people who are struggling with a little bit of negativity, or maybe they're being consumed by some of the noise and some of the chaos. Maybe help them out. I'm going to do my best. It's been a difficult few weeks to talk about positive things because there's been so much negativity in the world, especially when you hear some of the details of what went on when Israel was invaded by the Muslim Brotherhood. But, we got to do our best to also focus on the good things. Life does go on and has to go on. And to do it in a positive frame will make it a lot easier, right, than always being subjected to this. Christine says, where do we get your book? Simple. Go to honkingforfreedom.com, and the links should be there. You can get it on Apple Books, Amazon, a couple of them. I think Amazon's the only one that does paper, unless Apple Books does paper. I'm not sure exactly. But just go to honkingforfreedom.com and you can grab it there. Okay? And if you do, please leave a review and let me know what you think. I always like to get feedback from people. And anyways. So I think that's it for now. What else I wanted to say? Yeah. Oh, and then 5-minute journal. Don't forget to do that. I did this with a friend of mine a couple of days ago who was a little bit stressed. You ask yourself those 2 questions when you wake up every day. One is, what are 3 things that you're grateful for? And that is, right now, given what's going on in the world, that's an amazing exercise. To wake up in the morning and the first thing you start focusing on is trying to figure out what are the 3 things you're most grateful for. Not because you need to make a list of 3 things of gratitude, is because it shifts you into a positive emotional state and starts getting you thinking about all the things that you're thankful for in your life. It's like doing Thanksgiving every morning. And I find under particularly stressful times, it's a very, very valuable exercise, at least for myself. And might be for you. I still love listening to you, my friend Ben. Send love to all. Well, send love to all of you. And, we've been getting through this dark and negative period for a few weeks. And hopefully everything will work out. And there is also another positive. And you know what that is? You know what it is? Everything that when I was producing Quiggins' podcast and other people who I have met who've been equally concerned on these issues, that people in the West are asleep at the wheel. Robert Spencer is a good example. If you ever read or watch his videos, Jihad Watch, check it out. It's his work is amazing. He's been doing it for 20 years. The other positive is people are finally, some people, you're never going to get 100%, but more people than ever are now waking up to the threat of subversion that we're dealing with in the West. That your values are under threat. And it's not about being conservative or liberal or whatever. It's not about that. It's about freedom and living in a life that's not, in a society that's not authoritarian, in a society where you're allowed to be whoever you want. And that is all under threat right now. But people now see it. And you can tell because the politicians are now, in many cases, reverting course. Aside from Prime Minister Blackface Dipshit. He doesn't get it through his head because he's I'm sorry, he's a fucking terrorist. He really is. Or at least a terrorist sympathizer. If we lived in another era, he would have been strung up. But we live in the world we live in today, and I don't condone that sort of violence because I think we've moved on beyond that era. But that too will end. He'll be out of office. And once he's out of office, it's our job to put as much pressure as possible on the Conservative Party to ensure they're not talking out of both sides of their mouths like Doug Ford, who is basically Trudeau and Kathleen Wynne, but with right-wing rhetoric. And that's why I want to talk about this sort of stuff and persuasion, and I'll continue to do so. So, by the way, Cheryl, thank you for saying that. It's been a difficult week, and see you, Jesse. Say hi to Rocky for me as well, sweetheart. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. It's been really busy for me, and just constant. It's like when you're constantly working all day long, every day, and it doesn't stop. It just kind of drains on you emotionally a little bit, and I really appreciate all the kind words. Ward, we can only dream of him in a tall tree. Well, listen, the ironic part is that's exactly what would happen to him if the ideology he's importing here got control. He would be the first one they would string up. So, for a number of reasons, or maybe throw off a building. I know it's kind of dark. positive things going on. I promise you. The noise, it's just PR. It's just propaganda. Engage in the propaganda war until you start to get a little bit of anxiety, and then just shut it off. Turn off your phone, turn off the internet, whatever. Go watch a movie, go watch a classic, go play some music, enjoy your life, do the things that bring joy to you, see your family and friends, and pace yourself, and everything's going to be okay. All right, I got to run. Yeah, or yes, yeah, exactly, brother. You guys are awesome. Okay, I got to run. I'm going to be late for a meeting. I'm going to be there in 5 minutes, but I will talk to you all soon, and have a good day. And remember, be kind to people.